Welcome to the Good Word. My name is Vincent Goodwill, senior NBA reporter for Yahoo Sports. A bit of business before we get into today's show. We are, of course, on YouTube, so don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to us there, as well as all the places you consume your audio podcast. Yes, a brother is tanned. Yes, I took a couple days off, but I am back with my man J.A. Adande of Northwestern Medill and formerly of the LA Times, the Washington Post, ESPN, the Chicago Tribune. Did I forget any other place?
Sometimes, not Tribune.
Sometimes. Oh, my bad. Sometimes. My bad. Sometimes. My bad.
But you might be able to see the old newspaper rack card back when newspapers and rack cards were a thing. That was our showdown in the Chicago Sun-Times. Bulls, Knicks, 1993 playoffs. Patrick Ewing.
Wow.
Michael Jordan.
Wow. That wasn't no showdown.
That was a showdown. That was a great series.
No, it was a great series. No, it had what? 2 great games, right? Game 4 and Game 5 were great games. Michael Jordan with the 54 in Game 4, and the Smith stripped.
You also had the Starks dunk in Game 2. That's probably still, maybe until this year was the top moment in Knicks history in the last 30 years
Ain't that
or so.
A damn shame? Wait, ain't that a damn shame for the Knicks that your greatest moment of the last umpteen years, maybe Larry Johnson's 4-point play, but who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's say that is the greatest moment for the Knicks in the last 40 years, right? The Knicks didn't win a game after that dunk. That signified the end of their season.
That's why it was a peak.
That was it. It all went downhill from there, right? All right, let's stop talking about the Knicks before Knicks fan gets mad at us. Let's talk about, since J.A. is, of course, L.A. native, Santa Monica native, all that stuff. J.A., the L.A. Clippers have perpetually been trying to get it right. From Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to now it's just Kawhi Leonard. And now they've brought Chris Paul home for what looks to be his farewell season. You re-signed James Harden. You got Bradley Beal off of the scrap heap when he got bought out by the Phoenix Suns. Traded for John Collins. 1 to 10. This looks like, if health and age and all these other ifs, J.A., are we discounting the Clippers because they're the Clippers, or should we be thinking of them in a higher plane, given that it's, what is this, July 21st or whatever? But should we be thinking of them as a team that should be in the top tier of the Western Conference? Or are they just a cute and cuddly team?
They certainly improved, right? You look at, are they better today than the roster that they ended the season with? Yeah, they lost Norman Powell, who played important roles for them at times last year, but just the depth. And, in this version of the NBA, right, we're valuing depth over a big three.
Yes.
Right. So they're certainly suited for the current NBA models. The problem is, do you still get to the point that you have the best player on the court in any series? If you play Denver, if you play Oklahoma City, or if you play Houston, or if you play the Warriors, if you play the Lakers even, do you have the best player on the court? And, that's something that still holds. It's funny. I just did a seminar on numbers without numbers. How to utilize stats in your storytelling and data in your storytelling when I was out at the sports business classroom in Vegas. And I think that the champions since 1980 had a player who finished basically in the top three. I think the average MVP finish for the champions team's best player was like 2.3 in the MVP voting, right? So you got to have a top three. And obviously the Oklahoma City Thunder, the reigning champions, personified or exemplified that with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP winning. And they had the best point differential during the regular season. So those are 2 traditional indicators of championship worthiness. I just don't see the Clippers, for all their depth, I don't see them having anyone finishing in the top 5 in the MVP voting. And sometimes it really is that simple, Vinny. Do you have one of the 5 best players in the league on your roster when you're competing for a championship?
It's funny. I want to detour so bad, J.A. I want to detour so bad and try to name the years where you weren't 1, 2, or 3 in MVP voting. Like the weird brain in me wants to just go there and go down the rabbit hole and see if I could figure it out or whatever. But I'm not going to do that because I feel like we would have way too much fun, right? But
it is fun. It is fun to go by, but it's like once a decade. You know, Chauncey Billups, your boy. That's why you want to go down that rabbit hole.
No, those are the easy ones.
Actually,
those are the
all
easy
three
ones.
Pistons championships. You know, it's crazy. Like Isaiah and like Isaiah finished way down. He wasn't top 5 in the Pistons' best years.
Because ever since he made the comments or echoed the comments about Larry Bird, the majority media decided to take it out on him. And his individual numbers for the way that the Pistons played, the slow down style, you weren't going to get 22-11 like Magic. You were going to get 18-9 or 19-8, and those numbers didn't jump off the page like Magic's did, or Kevin Johnson's, or even John Stockton's, because the Pistons were playing a completely different game. But I get your point.
You should rename this podcast "Caping for Zeke."
No, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that. That'll be a special edition of the Good Word podcast. No,
that's every edition of the Good Word.
No, here's what I will say to your point about the Clippers. I give you Kawhi Leonard's playoff numbers from last year, right? Once again, 7-game sample size. You don't know how his health is going to hold up. But once he came back, he looked like Kawhi Leonard. And in that playoff series against Denver, where if they win that series, they could very well be the ones in the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. Like, that's how tightly contested that series was.
I was out there during that Denver series, and they liked how they matched up with OKC if they could get in. And OKC was having, they got off to a little bit of a stumble early. They're like, they felt confident if they got past Denver that they could match up well with OKC.
And they couldn't. And they couldn't because James Harden that Tiger went Tiger in Game 7. But, Kawhi Leonard on 50, 40, 78 splits, 25 a night, 5 assists, almost 8 rebounds. If we're extrapolating that for
was he better than
65
Jokic?
Games, no. Nobody's better than Jokic. Not even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Yeah. No, he's not. But to your point, I get that. And the question becomes, can you depend on Bradley Beal and Chris Paul? I think, and I want to see if you agree with me on this one, J.A., when a player gets soured on by the league because he makes too much money or because he's playing on a team that's underwhelming or disappointing or whatever, and we got to point the finger at the guy who makes a lot of money with the no trade clause, is Bradley Beal the guy who can maybe be the best version of himself at this point, playing for the Clippers where he's not expected to do the heavy lifting? Or is he the guy that is, he's never done real winning in his entire career? When he's had to be the number 1 or 2 guy, he doesn't contribute to winning, he doesn't help winning, and he's not going to help this team. What does he sit on one of those ends for you, or is it more gray area than that?
To me, it's not about is Bradley Beal like an all-NBA player. It's can he stay on the court? And the biggest problem, or one of the issues in Phoenix, was that he was hurt too much. So, if your best player, you're concerned about injuries and getting through the season healthy. If one of your main additions, you're concerned about injuries and getting through the season healthy. We always talk about if healthy, but has that ever applied to a team more than these Clippers, starting with their best player and then their marquee addition in the offseason? Your foundational piece and your addition, you're worried about them getting through the season, putting yourself in best position, right? Like, would the Clippers have had to play the Nuggets if they'd been healthier throughout the regular season?
No,
right?
no.
And they had a pretty good healthy year, right? Kawhi probably played more games than he had in a while, but it's still, they still weren't throwing out their peak roster every night.
Yeah, he played 37 games last year. The year before, he played 68. He signed the extension and then got hurt, which is the most Kawhi Leonard thing ever a couple of years ago. But yeah, to your point, once he played last year, averaged almost 22 a night, 6 rebounds, and he had a slow start to that. But once he's like an old Chevy, like the old Chevy that you would hear coming down the street. But once it got going, that old Chevy could get moving. It just takes a long time for the old Chevy to go. And now I think he's 33. Maybe 34. I think he turned 34 in June, if I remember correctly. It's 25. I think he's
and
born
some
in
of it's been
91.
chronic. Like
Yeah,
it would
yeah.
almost be better. Not that I'd wish this on anybody, but it almost would have been better, like if the injury history of Kawhi had been like a torn ACL or something, rather than chronic issues that you're continually managing and
Well,
that you
he
have to
had the
worry about.
ACL in 21 during the 21 playoffs where he looked like the destroyer of everything, and he came down hard on that one play against Utah, and they kept slow playing it, not telling us what the injury was when it was clearly an ACL, and he wound up missing the next of that season. Like, he's had the big injury.
Right.
He's just had so many
that's
other
not
nicks
it,
and
right?
bruises
Like,
since.
that's not what we're talking about now.
Right. That's not what we're talking about now.
It's been some lingering stuff.
Yeah. It's so put it like this. The question I have for you is this. Do you look at the Western Conference as Oklahoma City, Houston, and Denver in that top tier? Are those your three best teams, or do you still put Minnesota there? Do you put the Lakers there? Do you put Golden State there? How do you see those top three teams going? Because like you said, you're not getting to the finals unless you are one of those top three seeds.
Right. But and top 3 point differential teams, right? Top 5 point differential teams. That's really the only stat you need to look at when you're handicapping the playoffs, point differential. So, I just don't see those teams getting there in point differential. Vinny, I'm not sure I'm including Denver. Maybe, they reload, they've made some, they lost another piece of their championship team. I think most people like the move that they made, the additions that they made and sending Michael Porter out. Yeah. But, that was a guy who, when it works right, he fits with what you have there. So now we've got some mystery with Denver. Do all the new pieces fit? Jokic is Jokic, but he's someone that I think is comfortable knowing his guys. And now he's got to adjust to some other pieces out there too. I think it's pretty easy with him, but there's still an adjustment period.
Yeah, bringing in Cam Johnson for, I think, maybe $17 million less than Michael Porter Jr. is a net positive, considering the resources that you can use for an organization that does not like going into any level of luxury tax. So, there's that. And, did you see Jokic's brother were you there when Jokic's brother was there during Summer League? Like, just did you see that? I saw the clip because I was away, but I happened to see the clip of him in the stands during Denver's Summer League game. And let me tell you, brother, there better not have been a fight to break out, because that man looked ready to do some furniture moving, as in picking the chairs out of the stands with you in it. Did you see him?
He was obscured. Like, I think I was told, like, Jokic's brother was over there. Man, people were talking about it when I was there. Yeah, they were talking about his brother. He made an impact on Summer League without even stepping on the court.
Hey, look, man. Nikola Jokic, not Nikola. Nikola Jokic is the little brother. That man picked up his little brother at the end of the finals and carried him like a baby. Like, carried him like I would carry a 6-month-old. I was like, oh yeah. Once you saw that, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. I get Nikola Jokic not having to be the tough guy, because his brother is the tough guy. Easy.
Man, I did once with Ron Artest's brother was mad about something I'd written, and I made sure I smoothed that, because Ron Artest is the little brother. At least I don't know about chronologically, but I know physically Ron Artest is the little brother, and I don't want none of Ron Artest. So you can imagine having his brother upset with me. So so that's one thing. I made peace, and then you double check on that. We good, right?
We good, right? We good.
We good? Okay, all right. And after that, it was all good. But I needed to make sure. And the same thing with Jokic's brother. Like, we good? We good? I'm going to go back to my archives. Like, I don't think I ever said anything critical about Nikola, but like, can I hide the vote if I didn't vote for him for MVP? Like, should I go back and erase my name from the voting totals?
And here's what you also do. You make sure you do it around a whole bunch of people. You try to do it with cameras around, but you try to do it with an audience, so that if we not good, then he'll have the common sense to not try to flatten your jaw in front of the world. So you walk up with a smile. Hey, we good, right? Yeah, you sure? You sure? And then somebody shake your hand too hard, and next thing you know, they don't let you go. You know what I mean? Not saying that ain't never happened to me before.
Yeah,
but
Vinny, as you know, there's always the loading dock. At every NBA arena, there's the loading dock. And you can find me at the loading dock because that's always where the vending machine is. So I might be getting some snacks. And someone who might have the sense not to try anything out in the middle of the arena with everyone doing, they might meet you at the loading dock.
I did have a word or two with a player. Not a player's brother, but a player at a loading dock. A player, me, and a PR person, because I was trying to clear some things up with said player. And he wasn't very receptive at that point. And then he said something that was kind of not disrespectful, but dismissive. And then I responded ×2. And he went a separate way. It? I didn't escalate it, but I didn't de-escalate it. I did the mic drop. That's what I did. I said that the last thing that needed to be said in that particular discussion, I went my separate way, he went his, and we probably didn't talk for another 4 to 5 years.
Oh, 4 to 5. I thought you said 45 at first.
No. 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was, that was in my younger beat right days. I'm not necessarily proud of how I always conducted myself, but I was 26 at the time. Anyway, J.A., the Lakers, the other team in L.A., they're picking up Marcus Smart. They got DeAndre Ayton. We got this whole Luka LeBron thing. Let's put the Lakers itself to the side because you have been around for a lot of Laker farewell tours. Magic didn't really have one. Kareem had one.
Kareem and Dr. J set the original standards for farewell tours.
Is this going to be LeBron's last year? Do we think that from where we sit, that LeBron entering age 41 and year 23, and with where he sits with the Lakers, they didn't offer him an extension. He's making $52 million. All of that stuff. Do we think this is the last year for him, or is this just the last year in LA?
Here's the thing. This is the one time going forward, we're not sure if he can dictate the terms of his departure, right? Mm-hmm. So next year he's a free agent. After this contract expires, I don't see him working on an extension with the Lakers, right? So I would say, and here's the thing, we know he's going to want the farewell tour, right?
Yes.
It's not going to be a news release like the Tim Duncan, real quiet news release. We know he's going to have the Kobe Deluxe farewell tour. And so that means you got to determine it in advance. Even Kobe didn't announce it until the season had started, right? He didn't say going into the season that this is it for me. I think LeBron's going to want, a tribute at each and every stop he makes on the road. And so you're going to have to announce that before the season. And this probably is the last season that he will enter in full control of where he will end up.
That's a great point.
And so I think you got to do it. The flip side of that, Vinny, is that, we're talking about, okay, if he wants to go somewhere, really the only mechanism is to do the buyout, right? If he wants to get to his preferred destination at this point, especially if his preferred destination is the Cleveland Cavaliers, which happen to be the only team really presently in the second apron, which means they have the fewest means to try to acquire LeBron James. And so, again, do you want to get bought out during your farewell tour?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You don't want your legacy.
A rough look, man. So I just feel like if anyone is entitled to dictating the terms, it is LeBron James. He's dictated the terms, but again, you're the all-time leading scorer. You're one of the great players in league history. You deserve the farewell tour.
Yes.
And so let's make sure we get this right. And I think we can count on the Lakers and handling it right if they do. I think that's one of the reasons that he went there is that, they make sure they take care of their legends on the way out the door and beyond even. So he shouldn't think about the moment. Let's think about enduring, and LeBron is someone that takes that in consideration. Let's think about enduring moments. And for all the rough parts of Kobe's final years in Lakerland, we all remember how he went out with 60 points.
Yes, we do.
At home on his terms, right? And so the other thing with LeBron, if the Lakers had advanced, he wouldn't have been able to finish the playoffs last year.
Right.
You know, Charles Barkley didn't get to go out in his terms. You know, he got hurt. He tore his Achilles or something.
No, he tore a muscle like a pec or something like that.
Yeah,
and then came back for his very last game.
And
right?
came back and got one like gift layup, right? But it wasn't very dignified. You know, so like LeBron has to take into consideration, as fantastic a job as he has done of maintaining his body, it's not up to you. You know, like that's what he's finding out. It's not always up to you. You know, he has this kind of fluke play, gets bumped, tears his MCL or, you know, some meniscus damage, you know, and he wouldn't have been able to finish the playoffs last year.
Right.
Are we sure he'll be able to finish this season? You know, and this is not a knock on him. This is just the realities of 2 decades of wear and tear on your body. And, you know, it's not guaranteed you get to go out the way you want to go out.
It's funny, like when we think of the NBA's legends of the game, right? Bird didn't really go out on his own terms. He had the bad back, 92 that last year. I think they played Cleveland in the second round. He might have hit like a last sort of hurrah, and I think maybe game 6 of that series. And then they got blown out by Cleveland in game 7. Magic, there was a 91 series against the Bulls. Nobody knew that was going to be the end of Magic Johnson as we knew it. And then when he came back in 96, I thought he played much better than we remember. We remember sort of him bumping the official and complaining about some of the younger guys. But he was averaging like 16, 7, and 6.
Yeah, but you know how he went out, how it ended for Magic?
A 4 games lost to Houston in the first round.
And sitting on the bench in the last game. Magic ended his career on the bench, losing in the first round. You know, so like he obviously deserves better than that. LeBron deserves better than that.
Yep. Michael, of course, with the Wizards, we didn't get a chance to see Michael age gracefully. We didn't get a chance to see the decline. He left as the best player, and he came back as a 39-year-old with a bad finger and bad knees, which happens when you get old. For LeBron's sake, like you said, you hope that it's, like you said, more dignified, that it's with the Lakers. Like, he spent more time with the Lakers in this stint, J.A., than he has in any other stint of his career. This is entering what year 8 with the Lakers, if I remember correctly. He spent 7 in Cleveland the first time.
This is his longest run with any team. It's really weird because I still think
you don't think of him as a Laker. I don't think of him as a Laker.
Right. Well, you know, it's weird. Like, he's the all-time leading scorer, and you don't think of him as a scorer. You know, like if you think about LeBron James, like you just think of the totality, but like you don't think of him as a scorer. Like you think of Kevin Durant as a scorer, right? Even though you know he can do other things, but Kevin Durant is one of the great scorers that we've seen. He makes it look so easy. And you're right. His longest tenure is with the Lakers. He very well could go out as a Laker, but it's going to be hard for me to think of him as, you know, I think of him as a Cav, but I think of peak LeBron with the Miami Heat.
Miami Heat. Oh,
you know,
God.
You know what? It's similar, Vinny. Obviously, Shaq peaked with the Lakers and then went to several other teams.
Yeah.
But the best Shaq highlights are with Orlando. Like, if I'm putting a Shaq reel together, the majority of the highlights are going to be in that Orlando Magic uniform.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The best LeBron highlights are the first stint in Cleveland.
Yes.
The best version of LeBron is Miami. The most memorable version.
But the definitive LeBron moment is with the Cavs. Blocked by James, right? The definitive LeBron moment. Cleveland, this is for you. All that. The definitive moment is with the Cleveland Cavaliers. MJ, it was interesting, Vinny. One of my favorite stories, I went on the road with him, his last West Coast swing with the Wizards. And it's not that he was going through the motions, but he didn't want a big fuss made over it. He was just he was passing through.
Right.
You know, and it was just weird to see the GOAT just in passing, like, let's get this over with.
Because he was getting back to being owner, or so he thought, or getting back to having a piece of the team.
I spent a great afternoon with him. It was at the Warriors practice facility, the old practice facility in Oakland, and they finished, and he was hanging out. Patrick Ewing was an assistant coach on the Wizards. Chris Mullin was in the front office of the Warriors. So all those three, dream team teammates, you know, 2 great stars of the Big East back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And they were just all sitting around talking. and Michael was talking about, all his plans for when he went back into the front office. Like, he fully thought, like, okay, we're just going to finish this up. I'll head back in the front office, including, who he liked in the 2003 draft. Might not be who he actually thought about, who you thought it might be. But
was it a bad player? Was it a bad player that he thought of?
No, it wasn't a bad player. It just wasn't who turned out to be the best player in that draft.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Honestly, I might have been with him, or I didn't think he was that far off in his pick. I'll just leave it at that. But
you're going to tell me who that is during the commercial. Go ahead.
He was fully in the mode and fully expecting, and then he just got blindsided. He goes in for that meeting with the owner, Abe Pollin, afterward, and next you know, he's pulling out of the garage in his Corvette, and that was the last time we saw him in D.C.
That was wild. Look,
so
that's
the other thing. Like,
yeah.
Again, where is LeBron? Post career, is he gonna be sitting courtside at the Laker games? Is he gonna be courtside in Cleveland? Is he gonna mend the fences so he can show up in Miami? Like where will we see him?
That's a great question.
Post game.
His home. Here's the thing: LeBron is transient. Wherever he lays his hat is his home. That's the Temptations. Go look it up. I think he's the type of player who could show up at any NBA arena and expect to get the royal treatment. Like, except for Boston. Boston and the Bay might be the two places where he goes where he feels like he won't get like a standing ovation upon entrance. But any other place, he probably feels like, yeah, the party don't start till I walk in. Go ahead and give me them 2 front row seats. Like, I'm calling an hour before the game and you're going to make a seat for me. But I think ultimately his forever home as an NBA player is going to be in Cleveland. His forever home as an NBA statue will be the Lakers, unless this thing ends.
Does he get a statue out front?
Not statue, not literally statue, but just saying.
But that's an important thing, and it's something he wants. And I'm not sure he gets a statue.
I don't think why would he get a statue there? He should get a statue in Cleveland. He should get a statue in front of that arena for sure. In Cleveland, absolutely. And if you wanted to quibble and say maybe give him a statue in Miami, I don't know if Pat would go for that, but okay, fine. He authored some of the absolute greatest and best moments during that 4-year stretch, right? And some people would say that the Heat are still living off of that 4-year stretch. LeBron James is the author of that.
He's the best player to play for the Heat. He's not the greatest, Dwayne is right. Mr. Heat. I'd probably put Alonzo Mourning even ahead of LeBron in terms of just Heat legends. But he's certainly the best player that's played there. Obviously the greatest player in Cleveland. Like, it's weird, like, he's the best player who's played for the Lakers, but he's not the best Laker. I'm ranking everyone who's ever played, I'm putting him ahead of Magic and Kareem probably, but like, he's not ahead of them in Laker lore.
Well, look, I think Bleacher put out their top 100 players of all time, and I think Kobe was like number 11, and everybody got all upset about that. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if LeBron's a better basketball player overall. Is better than Magic Johnson. I think LeBron is a top 3 player of all time. 2 or 3 depending on the day. I think number 1, that ship has sailed. But I think depending on the day, that could be Magic, Kareem, or LeBron.
I'm putting him over both my Lakers that I grew up with their posters on the wall. I just think he could do more impact, But my criteria is always if I have to win a playoff game, who am I taking? Magic has that Game 6 in Philadelphia in 1980.
As a rookie.
LeBron's Game 6 against Boston. Man,
Look, the pantheon.
All-time performance.
The pantheon of, like, I hate ranking because off the top of the head, but, Michael's Game 6 against Utah, if that's what you want to say is his most determined game. It wasn't the most efficient game.
To me, it was Game 5 the year before, the sick game.
The flu game. It could have been the flu game, right? It could be 55. Look, Michael got a whole plethora of games that we could say is his greatest game. Magic has that one. Isaiah, this is the Isaiah podcast. Isaiah has the game against the Lakers. Bird has
which they lost, right?
They lost that. Yeah, they were cheated.
Right, but unbelievable performance, right?
Yeah, they were cheated out of that one. Yeah, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Damian Lillard coming back to Portland, because if we keep going, then me and J.A. are just going to stay in the crates for the rest of the show. Welcome back to The Good Word, here with my man J.A. Adande. J.A., while I was on vacation, I got to see that Damian Lillard re-signed with the Portland Trailblazers. Not re-signed, reunited. And it feels so good. We don't often get a chance to see players sort of eschew J.A. I got to win a championship. I got to go find a place to win, especially being hurt on the back end of my career, because I don't know what's going to look like when I come back. He said, you know what? I'm going to go back where it feels comfortable for me and my kids and my family. 3 years, $42 million. Chauncey Billups said he's going to be the highest paid assistant coach in the league. How does this sit with you? Does this sit as like a paradigm shift in a way of a player just going back to being associated with the one place that we'll forever associate Damian Lillard with? Or is this an anomaly of all anomalies?
I like it. And, again, LeBron kind of did it before going back to Cleveland, right? And he left on much worse terms than Dame left Portland. But so we had that. And we know, of course, LeBron, even though he left Cleveland again, he now is welcome back at any point. What I see Damian Lillard is as a cautionary tale, primarily for Giannis Antetokounmpo, in that, okay, if you leave the only place you've ever known, the only home you've ever had in this league, and you're leaving for the right reasons, right? You're leaving because you want to pursue a championship. It might not work out. And what do you have to show for it, right? And you think if Dame did it all over again, knowing what was going to happen, wouldn't you rather stay, especially with Dame's personal life, the fact that he was away from his kids, all that stuff, was it worth it? No, and obviously there's risk in any move you make, but I just think for Giannis, I would look at what happened to Dame and think, okay, would it be worth leaving this community, leaving this home, leaving a place where I am beloved and where I've given so much and where I've grown up and become an adult and where my kids were born, all of those things? Do you want to leave? And no matter where he goes, maybe they instantly become the favorites for the championship if he goes to the right team, but that doesn't mean you win it. And then if you don't, was it worth it? So I really see the cautionary and you could get hurt. There's a lot of things that come into play. So it's the ultimate beware that the grass isn't always greener.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what Damian, and honestly, when Damian got hurt, that was my first thought, was Giannis. And you wonder if that's one of the reasons we haven't heard much from Giannis or his camp. There really haven't been any rumblings. You wonder if he saw that. And I think it's wise for Giannis to just say, I think the best move is to make sure that you keep the pressure on the Bucks. And we see they made a drastic move, right? Whether it's a wise move, whether it's going to pan out. But the Bucks, to their credit, have always done all that they could. Yeah. They've always taken big, bold steps. First bringing in Dame, and then, stretching him.
First bringing in Drew Holiday.
But then bringing in Dame, moving off Drew and bringing in Dame, which I didn't always, I think at the time we saw some issues with, and a lot of those panned out. And then Drew went on to win a championship and helped the Celtics to a championship in Boston. But you admire the attempt. You admire the willingness to try to swing big. And it's funny, it's a big swing getting rid of Dame, because eating $20 million plus a year on your payroll sheet is a big, bold move.
That's a huge move. I think it's funny for Dame. It's a place, you go back to a place that's comfortable. You can rehab there. You can be a leader there. And Portland, I think, had a pretty good second half of last season. Chauncey Billups really found something with that defense. They've added a couple of more pieces. They've given Scoot Henderson sort of the runway to, okay, Scoot, this is the year now where you got to start figuring some stuff out on your own before we have to figure out whether we're going to pay you or not.
The Chinese Jokic coming in.
Right. I saw a little bit of that, and they are very happy. And he's a change of pace from the two centers that they already have. So I think he's going to play a little bit, and they're going to try to figure some stuff out with him, in the season. Whereas, you know what I mean? Maybe he's just a summer league guy, but they're going to give him the runway. For Dame, it's the question now, and you as an historian, you're the perfect person to ask this before we get back to Giannis, because I do want to touch on Giannis. Is he the greatest Blazer ever? Or is it Bill Walton, the truncated career we saw Bill Walton, or Clyde Drexler?
I think it's still Walton. And, it's funny. I didn't get to Portland a lot during Dame's, his greatest moments, so I didn't cover either of those playoff series, the one against Houston or the one against OKC when he had those two biggest shots of his career. I have a sense for how beloved he is, but, I also know that Walton, decades later, remained beloved. He almost felt like, put it this way, when he passed away, wasn't your first thought Portland?
Yeah, absolutely.
When Bill Walton died last year.
Absolutely.
The fact that into the 90s and the 2000s, you'd still see dudes showed up at a Blazer game with like tie-dyed shirts and like a headband and the long hair with the Walton look, I'm no disrespect, Dame. I don't think 20 years from now we're going to see people doing this.
I think we will. I think we will see. That will be an enduring image. It's not a championship image I think sometimes we hold so much weight in championships that we forget the texture that's around. Like Damian Lillard may never be an NBA champion, but he is a great part of the league's texture throughout his career. Like those game winners, those fourth quarters that he authored in Portland. Like you got to put 41 nights of entertainment together for an NBA season, especially there where it can be cold and we know it's rainy and we never see the sun come out. But he gave those people a reason to show up night after night, and he gave them he gave the Portland Trailblazers, that franchise, a reason to invest and compete. And they swung, and they didn't always connect.
But Bill Walton gave them a championship, and Dame gave them more, just cumulative total.
Right.
But Bill Walton, I'm not the person to really weigh in with the definitive statement. I'm not a Portland guy. I like it up there. I love hitting the
you love Cafe Dewberry?
But so I'm not saying I'm qualified. My impressions are that Walton is the guy. And, it's funny because, Walton won them a ring long before rings culture was a thing.
Yeah.
Right. But I just don't see, you never got a parade with them, like that parade, the fact that they had a parade in Portland, that's just a special thing. And Jack Ramsey with his colorful Blazers and all that stuff with that team.
Where does Clyde fit? Is Clyde ahead of Dame because he took two teams to the doorstep, to the two teams
but
to
he
the
also
NBA
cost
finals.
you MJ. It's funny, they never held that against him really, but like I would, man. I'd be looking because you never got into the championship, and we could have had MJ. But the rationale for not taking MJ was they had Clyde.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, at the time, right? Not saying that taking Sam Bowie, but at the time, right?
I sometimes I run that clip. I never had anything against Portland fans, but it's just nothing triggered any fan base as much as just the clip of David Stern with the second pick in 1984 draft. Portland selects Sam Bowie. No. The interesting thing about Portland, though, Vinnie, is kind of like I think an underplayed aspect of Adam Silver's press conference last week in Las Vegas.
We're going to get to that, right? Yep, we're going to get to that. Yep.
But before we get to the main takeaway, a subtle little takeaway, when he was asked, with the Blazers up for sale by the Paul Allen estate, was it important to him that the new owner keeps him in Portland? And Adam only went as far as to say it was the preference that they stay in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing stronger than that, nothing weaker than that. But to me, that wasn't a very strong statement. It wasn't a requirement that they stay in Portland. It wasn't a high priority that they stay in Portland. It was just the preference that they stay in Portland. So I'll say, and to me, that plays into expansion talk too.
Well,
We want to get into that a little bit later.
well, no, we're gonna bring it up right now. We're gonna bring it up right now. Like, I missed the presser just because I had a pre-planned trip, and whenever you get a chance to get the white smoke and the commissioner comes out, you never want to miss those things. But I knew that was going to be one of the questions on the docket, and I had a feeling, JA, about expansion at least, that Adam had been kicking his can down the road for the past several years. Well, we got to get the new CBA done. Oh, we got to get the new TV deal done. And as it happened, people kept getting, their mouth watered for it. Okay, now it's Seattle. Now it's expansion. And my thought was, even though the Lakers sold for $10 billion, the Celtics sold for $6 billion, even though that raises the expansion fee for whomever comes in and that fee gets dispersed to the member franchises, I don't know if the franchises themselves are in a rush for expansion to split that really, really big media rights pie that they would have to, split up even more into another, not big market, not small market, but big-ish market in Seattle.
Which Adam Silver referenced, right? So instead of splitting it, 30 ways, you split it 32 ways. And the thing is, like, it's only, the percentage declines get smaller and smaller as you expand more and more, right? But the numbers are bigger now.
Right.
So, so 1/30th as opposed to 1/32nd, but like that's a big a big number now, that whatever percentage is when we're talking, was it $76 billion in the new rights deal coming their way? So like after, they're making it rain right now. Do you want that number to get a little bit smaller? A key thing that he mentioned is that the regional sports network model is in complete disarray.
Right.
And so he said he wants some clarity because for these new owners coming, okay, we know what their share of the national TV rights deal would be like, but could they get a sustainable local regional sports network deal that would make it worthwhile, that would help them compete with some of the other teams that do have, like you look at the Lakers and the Knicks, the type of money they make from their RSNs is much bigger and maybe even bigger than a place like a Seattle could generate. At one point, they were one of the city of Seattle and in particular the Seattle Mariners. They were doing great numbers on their RSN. It was a big success story, but that model is broken now. So I don't know what the latest numbers look like. And no matter how well the Mariners are, we just know it's not what it used to be. So you wonder if rather than expand in Seattle, the Trailblazers move to Seattle.
Ooh,
and I don't want to send shockwaves through the good people of Portland and that community. But when you looked at, and they weren't directly connected, but if you start connecting the dots, his unwillingness to make a strong, definitive statement about the new owner of the Blazers has to keep them in Portland. B, his reticence to talk expansion in the NBA. He mentioned, they're paying a lot of attention to getting this European league going. And so I think he's thinking in global terms.
Right. Yes.
I had somebody else say to me, they think there'll be an expansion team in Mexico City before maybe Las Vegas or Seattle, just because the league is thinking globally now. And so
I don't know how a team in Mexico City will work, but go ahead and do you, Adam.
But that's just a thought. Get you into Central and to South America, right? You're heading down, and opening new gateways there. But I just get the sense, A, they're thinking globally. B, they're unsure of the regional sports network model and how much revenue a new team could generate and could it really compete with that. And then. He did mention, do we want to dilute the talent base? We've gotten to a place where a lot of teams can, 2/3 of the league can, entertain some thoughts of doing something. But if we dilute the talent pool a little bit more, what does that do for the league, the competitive nature of the league?
Yeah.
And then finally, he was asked about Las Vegas and he was like, we already have a great presence in Las Vegas. Some of the summer leagues there, you've got 30 teams there for 2 weeks. You own that. The NBA Cup final is in Las Vegas. USA Basketball frequently brings, a team full of NBA players to Las Vegas. So I think they're kind of saying, you know what, we already got this market here, and obviously
they
Vegas
don't need
matters
another
a lot
presence, and
to the
they don't
Lakers.
need another presence in Las Vegas.
I don't think you need to be, you're there like about 25 nights a year already. You've got NBA action going on in that city.
Mm-hmm.
So is it worth it for another 16 nights? I don't know.
It's not worth it for you and your players to be in Las Vegas any longer than you already are. That's what I'm saying.
Especially with the fact, Chris Haynes, credit to him for asking the question, the commissioner, about, the gambling issues that we've had with 2 players. I think it's 2 players currently under investigation for gambling stuff. So, as much as we've certainly moved past this line of aversion to Las Vegas and the gambling, and the leagues are partnering with gambling companies and all that, like, it is opening these doors, and having more of a presence in Las Vegas brings back those old fears and concerns.
Yeah, and honestly, who's going to be paying for an arena in Las Vegas when you already have, you may have the space per se, and because it's the desert, but I don't think Las Vegas is going to be putting up money for an arena. I don't think
the Raiders arena, the Raiders stadium that went up, the A's stadium is funny. Did you see all those billboards around for the A's stadium? Notice you didn't see construction going up on the proposed A's stadium, but they certainly, there's been money allocated, at least. Like, they're a lot further along down the road toward having the funds allocated than an NBA team would be. And
here's the other thing, Jay. An NBA arena, unless you're the Lakers, unless you're Staples, not the Lakers, because the Lakers don't even own crypto.com. They're the third biggest tenant there. But in most NBA facilities, they're dual usage or tri-usage or multi-usage, where you've got a hockey team there, and then it's a concert venue. Las Vegas don't need another concert venue. They got plenty of.
They got the Sphere.
You think James Dolan wants to compete with an NBA team on paying lower prices for an act to play there? And if you're an NBA team, you got an arena built, and you're paying next to nothing to get an act to play there, you're not making enough money anyway to make it worth your while.
Right.
That's why I think Las Vegas has always been a pipe dream.
Right. So the hockey team, they've got their own arena. The fights, they can be at the MGM or Mandalay or whatever. So
or the White House. They be at the White House.
UFC,
the White House.
So how many, you're going to spend $1 billion and maybe use it 50 nights a year. I don't know. Them
big buildings exist for a reason, but they'll make a whole lot of money. I'll tell you that. Now, before we get to the last word, Jay, since we're talking collective bargaining and things of that nature, I did get to see the WNBA. I didn't get to see the All-Star game. I didn't cut on a TV for my entire vacation. I had TVs in my room. I didn't cut it on not once. But I did get to see on the internet that the WNBA players were wearing the shirts, pay us what you owe. They only receive currently, JA, 9% of basketball-related income. They're in collective bargaining talks. There's been talk of, a lockout, strike, whatever you want to call it, next season, which would be a really bad look for everybody involved. Are you surprised, Jay, just from what I've seen in this very small Twitterverse, and granted, it is a cesspool, that there is such an aversion to, the brass tacks of the women saying, hey, can we get more than 9% of basketball-related income? Can we maybe get 25%? I'm not saying that's what they're asking for, but are you surprised that there's such an aversion to that publicly?
Well, Twitter, or what used to be Twitter, is just useless for gauging public sentiment, my final straw with that was I was trying to get some, on the ground information during the LA fires in January. And I went on there and I, put the keyword and hashtags LA fires, and all I got was like all this anti-DEI stuff. So we saw that when the Grok bot just went straight. It went straight past whoever else you want to talk about. It went straight to Hitler. When people started talking about stuff, the level of anti-Semitism on there was just set at the highest setting. They admitted it was trained on this. So, So the notion of discourse on Twitter, I think is dead. So it's not a valid gauge. What I think does matter is the fact that the people in the arena were chanting, I forget specifically, pay the players or pay them, so like the base, you got the base, the people that care about the product, they're on the players' side, to extent that I don't think we've seen in another major sport. Right. We've seen this for the members of the U.S. women's soccer team. The national team had people at the rally chanting pay them. So I think that's important. The people on Twitter, they're not buying tickets to go see the WNBA. The people in the arena have the players back. So that had to be a very powerful moment for them. So the question is, so if you strike, you certainly lose some momentum,
right?
This mainstream popularity that they're gaining in these television ratings that they're gaining, you lose momentum from that. But I don't think your core supporters would tune out. They've made it clear who they stand. They're on the player's side. So they're not going to want to punish. They're going, if anything, when the arenas open back up after the strike or lockout, particularly a strike, I think they'll be back, hey, we're happier now knowing that more of our money is going to the players. Here, let me write a check for some season tickets. So this is an unusual dynamic, Vinny, that we really haven't seen before, because, really the era of strong unions and player activism and strikes, it started in the 1970s. There was a good book, I don't know if I have it on the shelf here, but it was about the NFL. And, when the NFL players first started fighting for rights and unionizing and doing that, a lot of the language, the signs, the picket signs and the protest signs that they had, a lot of the language borrowed from the language of the civil rights movement. And it echoed that language, and that didn't go over so well.
Right.
The meat and potatoes NFL fans, right? And so that's kind of been that tradition. Even though Americans, by and large, have favored labor over ownership, and Vinny, you obviously well aware of this coming up in the union town of Detroit, when it came to sports, they favored the owners, and that had to do with the way the media covered it and portrayed these athletes as, spoiled millionaires, et cetera, playing a game. How can you want anything? You get paid to play pro sports. We'd all trade places with you. So you had no sympathy from the media. And again, in the particularly in the NFL, you're using language that reminds people of the civil rights that people weren't really thrilled about granting. And so, but now, there's been a shift in, by and large, after union support has declined, it's been increasing in recent years, not quite back to where it was like in the 50s or so, but it's on the upswing. Any backlash against like the billionaire oligarch class, and in particular, this groundswell of support for women's sports, all those things combine to put the WNBA players in a uniquely strong position, even though they might have the least amount of leverage, because despite the popularity, right, we're still not anywhere close to generating the revenues of the NBA or the NFL, et cetera. But there's still this upswell. You have the public support. I think it's worth the risk for them to strike if that's what it's going to take to get the type of collective bargaining agreement terms that they want.
Here's two things that I want people to understand, because we always hear, they're always losing money, For one, anyone can cook the books to make things look however they want them to look. I remember during the 2011 lockout, it was all the teams were losing money. And I sat back and I asked Self, and I said, Self, if all these teams are losing money, why are all these people trying to buy these teams?
Right.
If it's a poor investment, higher valuations, right? I give you a perfect example. The Golden State Valkyries, right? Their valuation, I think, is expansion team, y'all. Expansion team. I think it's $550 million. Now, by comparison, J.A., I covered the Detroit Pistons in 2010 when their team was for sale. You probably don't remember the listing price, J.A. I'm going to tell you the listing price. what they were sold as. No, they were sold for what listed as, y'all, $320. I guarantee you that was not what they were paid. And that was in 2011. So what I'm saying to augment Jay's point is, with all these new teams, with the expansion that's coming in, with 5 new teams coming together before 2030, I believe, was it Cleveland, Detroit, a few more, right? Toronto, Philly, not Philly. Cleveland, Detroit, Philly. I mean, Cleveland, Detroit, Toronto. Those are 3. And I feel like it was 2 more, right? But with all those teams coming in, forgive me for not remembering the 2 teams. I got island brain right now. Still got sand in my brain. But those people would not be making huge investments for the future into the league if it were a losing proposition, if it were charity. And second point, J.A., as we know now in this new media age, live sports rights means more than anything in the streaming era. And if whatever you want to say about the WNBA, if you don't like the players, if you only like Caitlin Clark, whatever it is, they're at the doorstep because they have live sports. They have a valuable thing in a very volatile marketplace. Of course they should get more. It's just a matter of figuring out how much more.
I was at an event last month. Alex Rodriguez was speaking. And I think one of his last thoughts was that investing in women's sports right now is the best investment you can make, because it's not overvalued. You know, the Lakers are overvalued. The Celtics were overvalued. I'm sorry, they're not. The Lakers, without owning a building, you don't even get to buy the building. $10 billion, they're overvalued, you know?
Right.
Women's sports, women's franchises are undervalued. This might be the last time we can say that, right? So it's a tremendous buying opportunity. And so even if it means you're eating some yearly operational losses, if you're going to increase the amount of revenue that you share with the players, you know you're going to make it up on the back end. You know, you got a shot at, put it this way, if you buy a NBA or MLB, NFL team, do you really think you got a shot at a 10x, you know, increase in value? I don't know how many multiples the Lakers. I think Jerry Buss bought them for like 70 million or something like that. The whole purchase, the Lakers, the Kings, and the Forum, you know, and they just sold for 10 billion. You're not going to get that type of ROI on any existing men's league franchise. I think you got a shot at, you know, or at the very least 2. You know, if you bought the Valkyries right now at 500, you know, the chance you could sell them for $1 billion in 10 years, you know, and double. You know, do you really think whoever, you know, the Mark Walter group that bought the Lakers, do you think they're going to be able to double, you know, when they sell? I mean, at some point, we're like reaching we got to be reaching the upper limitations.
Yeah, we got to be reaching a bubble. We got to be reaching a bubble.
We're nowhere close to the upper levels of the valuations on these women's sports franchises. So again, you could lose $50 million, you know, a year, I think, and still sell them at a profit. You know, you'll bank a lot of money if you bought a team today and you have operational losses every year. You're still going to walk away, because this is the prime time to buy into, you know, a women's professional sports franchise. Across sports, right? Not just the WNBA. Right. We've seen it in hockey and soccer. You know, like, it's a great time to buy a women's sports franchise. I've had people give presentations to my class about this prime opportunity to buy. So why shouldn't the players be able to get whatever share they can of that? And it's not going to be close to what the owners make when they sell these franchises.
Last thing for y'all, stop caping for these billionaires. They don't know y'all. They don't care about y'all. Stop caping.
They would fire you if they had the chance. If they had the chance, they would fire you and replace you with a AI bot.
Oh my God. Dude, the one thing I can't stand, and maybe this is me being too militant here, when we call Robert Kraft Mr. Kraft. Man, your name is Bob. I'm calling you Bob. You ain't calling me Mr. Goodwill. You calling me Vinnie. All right, cool. I'm going to call you Bob. I'm calling Jerry Reinsdorf Mr. Reinsdorf. I'm calling you Jerry. Jerry Jones, cool, Mr. Jones. Man, you don't get out of here with that.
Jerry Buss never corrected us and insisted that we call him Dr. Buss.
Dr.
A
Buss,
lot of people deferentially would, like Magic, you'd always hear him refer to him as Dr. Buss. But I roll. First of all, you see him in the club, so if I see the owner out in the club, I'm not rolling up and saying,
that doctor rolls out the window, dog.
Right. I'm like, hey, Jerry, I've been telling people this a lot. Like, what young people covering the league right now, you don't see you're not going to run out to the players don't go out,
Right. Right.
But when we're covering the league, not only the players out in the club, the owner was out in the club,
outside the owner
in the club, all
what is
over
different?
Hollywood.
It was, Jerry Buss bought the Lakers for $67 million in '79.
And that was for the whole thing, right? Lakers, Kings, and Forum, right?
Yep. That was for the whole thing. $67 million. I.e., Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could go back into a time machine in a couple of years and purchase the Lakers for his yearly salary.
And the Kings and the Forum. Like, it's not just
the Kings and the Forum. And the Kings and the Forum. 2
franchises and a building.
Oh, my God. We got one more break, and we're going to come back very quickly with the last word. Time for the last word with J.A. Adande. J.A., I'm going to make this real quick for you. Will we see another LeBron James first or another Stephen Curry?
Another Steph. I mean, we've already kind of seen something similar in Caitlin Clark. That was the appeal of Steph, was that, you can play that way. You're not going to be as good at it as him, but you can try, and from Damian Lillard to, all these other Trae Young, like all these people, like, jacking up shots from everywhere. You can come down and jack up shots from everywhere. You can't be LeBron. You can't do what LeBron did. Like we talked earlier about.
That's just genetics. That's genetics in a way that can't help you.
What, different stages and phases of LeBron, man, Cleveland LeBron, the seeing someone that big move that fast was unbelievable, and when I did that Redeem Team podcast with Jack McCallum a few years ago, going back and watching 2008 LeBron, oh my God, it was breathtaking. So yeah, we haven't seen that since. We see people that, that was a shot like Steph. We've never seen like a physical presence, unique physicality like LeBron James. Someone that big, moving that fast and jumping that high. We ain't gonna see that again.
Well, and you got to make sure that person plays basketball. And you got to make sure that person is 6'9". And you got to make sure that person doesn't have any type of debilitating injury because he's using that frame at that speed and going out of control and just damaging himself at a young age. We're not saying Steph Curry's any less great or whatever. We're not debating that. But that skill more or less can be honed over the course of years. It will take a lot. It will take millions of hours to do that. But LeBron is a once-in-a-lifetime athlete, just in terms of his physical makeup and the longevity and everything else. So it's no shot to Steph at all. Steph is amazing. LeBron is amazing. That was just something the producer threw at us before we close. So Steph lovers, please don't. If you want to send some messages, go send them somewhere else. I don't give a damn. But that's my man, J.A. Adande. J.A. still does stuff with ESPN. He was in Las Vegas for a seminar, Northwestern Medill, a class that he invites me to speak at. J.A. does everything. Really happy for you to join me today, man. Really appreciate you, Jay.
Great to see you, Vinnie.
Absolutely, man. Thanks to producer Dakota, who does all the things behind the scenes on this show, i.e. that's producer Dakota, who does everything behind the scenes on this show. I'll be back on Thursday for the next episode of The Good Word. Until then, everybody be safe. You don't have to agree, but you have to click subscribe. Debate lives here. Yahoo Sports is where the conversation starts. Bring your takes to the comments.